Okay, here we go with a pretty tricky question about electromagnetic induction. As ever, hit pause, try the question, and then watch my attempt at an explanation for this one. Okay, this is one of these ones which I find quite frustrating, not being sort of face-to-face. I think it's quite a hard one to show, but we'll go for it anyway. We're going to try and rule out some of the answers that were offered. So we're basically being suggested that this plane could be, this coil, sorry, could be rotated in different directions. We could go about XX, okay, we could go about YY. We're ignoring ZZ here, so let's not worry about that just now. Now, first thing to note is we're going to generate this graph, and this graph shows a quarter of a wave. Now, your initial thinking here is, okay, how can we get a quarter of a wave? What rotation, which angle are we going to need to get a quarter of a wave? Well, a quarter of a wave, well, that's 90 degrees, that's pi over 2. Okay, so actually what we're going to do is get rid of B and D straight away because they imply a rotation about 180 degrees. This is about 90 degrees, pi over 2. Now then the question, the harder bit is, which of our axes are we rotating around? Are we rotating around this YY, or are we Y dash Y, sorry, or are we rotating around XX dash? The thing to note here is the direction of the magnetic field. It's in the YY dash direction. So in other words, it's a kind of a vertical field acting down like this. Now we need to ask ourselves which rotation would allow that flux acting through the coil. Remember, it's the flux through the coil that changes and therefore generates the EMF. Which rotation would allow that flux to increase and decrease? Now hopefully you can see that if I were to rotate about Y, I wouldn't be increasing that area which is normal to the field. However, if I were to rotate around X, it would. In other words, I'd be cutting those field lines, which is why the answer here is the XX dash. Now, as I say, I'd normally use some other way of showing this, maybe using a whiteboard. I've done that before. I hope that's clear. If it's not, please let me know.